We just hit 100,000 validators.
Could you mention a few number of names of existing based app, if you can mention it without revealing any secrets?
What we're working on with based applications is bringing the world of Web3 services to secure their application.
What are impacts of Pectra on the existing DVT network?
What we provided was a 10% APY boost on Ethereum consensus layer rewards.
Any dream to bring the value of SSV to any other network? Welcome, Alex. I'm very thankful that you have accepted our invitation to join us today. The idea with this format is to cover SSV Network project from the genesis to the today's issue you solve and a bit of future with your roadmap. Before going in details, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Louis, for having me down. We've known each other for some time and partnered together with Maria, so really appreciate the invitation and looking forward to the conversation today to share more of what we've been up to at SSV and the sort of things that we're working on. But yeah, just to introduce myself, I manage business development and partnerships at SSV Labs. SSV Labs were the core contributors to SSV Network. Before I joined SSV, I've been in crypto for about 4 years now in total. I was at Consensus before that. Consensus, obviously one of the big giants in the
I think we
Ethereum
don't need to
space.
present,
Yeah.
to present them.
But yeah, I got to work on some cool products, but really a background in blockchain infrastructure, working with dApp builders, everything they need to scale their dApp, and super interested in the staking space, met the SSV team. And since then, had the opportunity to work with some of the largest staking service providers like you guys, LSTs, LRTs, everything really to scale their application using distributed validator technology.
Welcome to this new episode of Maria Unchained on Air. I'm Louis, CPTO at Maria. This episode is recorded in besides the Token 2049 happening in Dubai this week. And first, I would like to thank our partner Earth Mining Solution to host us today. In this episode, we will discover together a blockchain project. We will start with the genesis of the project, technical approach, value proposal, and on top of that, the ecosystem. Thanks to be with us during the next 30 minutes, and let's go. And talking about SSV, what is SSV?
So SSV, primarily what we're focused on is DVT. That's Distributed Validator Technology. It's a project that was born out of the Ethereum Foundation, and really back in the day was to do some deep research in how can you take an Ethereum validator and allow it to be operated by a number of parties. And how the technology works is you have a validator key, which is, doing all the operational work, doing all the attestations, the block proposals, and all the duties. SSV allows you to split the key and assign each key share to independent node operators who can collaboratively work together to run the validator. Why it's important is because it allows you to have a really robust and resilient setup, in the sense that if one operator goes down, there's a consensus mechanism to make sure that everything is up and running and you have amazing uptime and you really eliminate a lot of the slashing risk.
Yeah, it prevents the slashing and the risk around funds you delegate to validators.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's why a lot of staking service providers, I really see it as the gold standard technology to, make sure everything's resilient and you offer, staking products that are, safe and yield bearing for everybody to use.
How many ETH are secured today in the DVT network?
So actually, SSV Network this week, we're celebrating a huge milestone. We just hit 100,000 validators.
Amazing, congrats.
Thank you. And that's actually representing about 10% of the full Ethereum network. So it's really quite sizable and ubiquitous in the Ethereum space today.
So SSV, well, you are in business since a while around the DVT network. Now you are moving to SSV V2. What is the purpose of SSV V2? It is a pivot. It is the next step of the SSV network. DVT will still exist, or what does it mean for SSV network, existing network?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think, I just don't know about your conversations that you've had in Dubai and in the industry. I think it really depends who you speak to, that people are either, super bullish on things that are happening, but I think if you have an honest conversation, like there's a lot of challenges I think that Ethereum is facing today, which is, why we're have this kind of war mentality at SSV. Like obviously we work with a number of those partners running validators at scale, but ultimately, what can we do as a big player in the Ethereum space to make sure that Ethereum, number one, as the asset, has continuing to accrue value, and those that are running validators, how can we accrue more value back there? And basically what SSV V2 is, it means that what we're doing is we're going into the shared security space ourselves, but we're not doing restaking before all the listeners think
That was my question.
Yeah.
Restaking already exists to solve that.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So we're not doing restaking, but what based application is like with Justin Drake, right? Like he's really trying to hammer home the point of, we have base sequencing and base rollups, essentially, relying on the primary L1 validator to do all the tasks and to accrue the value. But what we're saying now is, why don't we extend this to any Web3 service, whether that be a bridge, storage, ZK processor, anything that requires a set of validators? Why don't you use the primary Ethereum validator itself? And what we've implemented as a design choice, which makes it fundamentally different to restaking, is that there's no slashing. Well, what we do is we isolate the slashing risk completely from the validator itself. So if you have an effective balance of 32 ETH on your validator, with restaking, you're essentially, delegating that to eigenlayer, and you're exposing yourself to slashing risk. With based applications, what we're saying is that you don't need to do that. You can continue to have validators there, and all you need to do is opt in to earn rewards. But we isolate the slashing risk separately. So we have a separate kind of tranched pool where, you can have a more kind of high risk, high yield strategy. But if you're running validators, you can do a low risk, lower reward strategy. And this is really going to change the game, we think, and really help, Ethereum find its mojo back, and hopefully, bring up to the next iteration of excitement in Ethereum.
Can we say that SSV V2 with based app is the best of breed between L2 concept and restaking?
Yeah, I think basically spinning up an L2 or any Web3 service, you need, a decentralized set of operators or validators to opt in to do that. We know that's very challenging, and
it needs to create a full economy.
Exactly. And with eigenlayer as well, because there's slashing risk that's there, and it's also, you're playing liquidity games. You need liquidity to support it, so it's very challenging to bootstrap. But with based applications, you've got a whole validator set of the most robust decentralized validator set out there with 1 million validators in Ethereum, that you can say, hey guys, like, I have a new Web3 service. All you need to do is opt in to secure my based application, and away you go. And it's going to make things much cheaper to provision.
And how does the economy work? How the revenue is generated, how it's distributed, how it's split across the different players in the game?
You have a developer building a based application. They'll say, hey guys, like I need 2,000 validators worth of Ethereum security to secure my based app. And it's up to the Ethereum validators to opt in and provide the rewards.
And at the contrary of restaking, where restaking users select where they want to put their money, on the SSV V2 with based app, it's operator doing the due deal and choosing the apps to secure.
Yeah, well, this is one of the key differentiators between based apps and restaking. So with restaking, you're playing liquidity games. So I give you this example. So say you're running a strategy on eigenlayer and you're already opted into 5 AVS, and you have 100 ETH separated across everyone. What if the 6th AVS comes along and say, hey, like I have a new service, can I get some security? The challenge for the restaker is that they have to either rebalance their portfolio or bring in new capital from elsewhere, and it's really a zero-sum game when we think about it like that. And when you play liquidity games, in markets such as this right now, and liquidity is quite dry, it becomes really challenging to bootstrap a network. Based applications, in the sense that it's architected, it's an infinite sum game, because you can, as long as you have an Ethereum validator running on SSV, you can continually opt in and opt in and opt in to secure different based applications. So it's really like a blue ocean of yield opportunities. So we want to, create a protocol that's there that allows validators or L1 validators really to have a wealth of opportunities to generate extra yield.
And talking about yield, as a need yield staker on ETH, I can expect 2 to 3% as yield. What based app brings me in additional yield?
That's a great question. And for this one, we have like a really interesting data point, actually. And this goes back to like the SSV 1.0 or the DVT journey that we've been on in the last year. So SSV Network, we launched on mainnet, I think about 18 months ago. So starting from 0 validators running. And I think a lot of the partners that we work with, like obviously big believers in the tech, and that's why they've committed to using the technology. But part of the rapid rise or the story of SSV is that we have incentives in place as well. And incentives are obviously important to bootstrap any Web3 service.
Airdrops or incentives.
Absolutely. And what we provided was a 10% APY boost on Ethereum consensus layer rewards. So for example, at Maria, if you're offering customers 3.5%, you can claim an additional 0.35% on top as well in the form of SSV tokens. And what we saw was really interesting in the fact that 10% of the Ethereum network actually migrated from legacy validator setups to DBT setups. And what that told us is that validators are increasingly looking for yield opportunities, but yield opportunities where there's no additional exposure to risk.
Yeah, the idea is to boost the APY without adding new layer of risk on top.
Exactly. So when we're talking to based applications, and we fundamentally know that Ethereum validators can opt in without exposing their validator balance to risk, we could give them a guide idea of, like, say, if you're able to offer 10% APY boosts, you can expect validators to opt in because there's no risk to the validator balance. So because we're going to be building up this big marketplace of based applications, say if you opt into 5 or maybe even 10, you can really see how this yield begins to stack quite quickly. And all of a sudden, Ethereum staking becomes very exciting again.
Now we understand the concept of base app. Could you mention a few number of names of existing base app or incoming base app, if you can mention it without revealing any secrets?
Stay tuned. So we're going to have a big announcement coming in the next few weeks where we're going to be bringing on or announcing 5 to 6 launch partners. So they'll be ready out of the gate on testnet. So if you're running Ethereum validators, you can opt in, get your hands dirty, see the experience for yourself. And mainnet will be coming live in the summer. And then from that point onwards, we're working closely with a lot of the top developer teams to bring real yield opportunities to Ethereum validators.
So in terms of timeline, now it's in testnet.
Yeah.
And incoming this summer in mainnet.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So it will be day-to-day. We switch from SSV V1 to V2, or it will be a progressive onboarding of validators switching to the network?
Yeah, I would say SSV V1 and V2 are working together like very, very nicely. So V1 is really the DVT story. So DVT continues to be a big focus for us, and it's really important for Ethereum itself and its mission to further decentralize, to bring DVT to market. V2 is really about how do we bring these additional yield opportunities to stakers, but also bringing the mojo back to Ethereum and accruing value back to validators and making Ethereum an exciting place to be again.
What are impacts of Pectra on the existing DVT network and potentially on V2? Does it bring new challenges, new advantages, new key features to enhance the existing product or the new coming?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So I would say the biggest change with respect to those users of SSV with Pectra is the update to the max effective balance of a validator. So to run a validator on Ethereum today, you have to have a minimum of 32 ETH. With Pectra, that's going to be the maximum effective balance will be put to 2048 ETH, which is a 64 times increase from 32. When you have a lot more economic value on one single validator, it's all the more important to ensure that you have the best security and most robust setup to ensure you don't go offline or, God forbid, get slashed. Right now, I mean, let's be honest, you guys run validators, so well, if you go offline for a little bit, do a little bit of maintenance,
it could be risky.
Well, it's not that expensive at the end of the day, because you're only getting penalized just a little bit. But actually, if you're doing upgrades or if there's a software outage or anything, and then you go offline when there's more value on your validator, then it's going to be quite costly. And I think a lot of the professional node operators are going to find that very soon, or hopefully not the hard way. So when you're bootstrapped with DVT, for example, like
you can distribute.
Yeah, exactly. No problem. You keep things online. You used to do maintenance on one of your operators. You keep things going. So, and for staking services like you guys, you're obviously incentivized to keep your hardware costs down. I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation from people bringing validators together into making one big validator with everything for their customers. But one way to counter that is making sure to use DVT.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but DVT can be restricted to a certain number of people. For example, as a service provider, I can choose my operators or peers to collaborate into a kind of pool like mining. For example, if tomorrow we decide to do a French DVT network with only the French staking provider, it's something possible.
Yeah, for sure. Like the SSV Network gives you all the tools to go wild and go creative and how you want to design your cluster. But ultimately, SSV is a DVT network. So we have a operator marketplace of over 1,500 operators to pick and choose from according to your own criteria. So if I have a validator key or 32 ETH and I want to stake, I can choose anyone from professional node operators, like the big guys who have really good uptime and everything, all the way down to solo stakers and grassroots. But even still, like if you want to run everything in-house yourself, you're more than welcome to. So you can have one operator in France, one in Italy, one in Australia, or maybe using different client combinations, or making sure like you use different setups. So if something were to happen, then you have the increased resiliency. So that's ultimately how the network is used.
In terms of ecosystem, in terms of vision of the future, what is your vision of the future at SSV around ETH, staking, and your product in the middle of everything?
Right now, like we're really on this kind of war footing with Ethereum right now. So the idea is, with based applications is, really doing our part to make sure that Ethereum validators that are running on SSV have the yield generating opportunities that are accruing back to the validator and ultimately to the ETH token, which is, why we're kind of all building in this space to begin with. And then at the same time, making sure, Ethereum continues to remain decentralized and robust, and whether that you cut decentralization into multiple entities that are staking, or making sure that one client isn't used more than another. SSV gives validators the tools to make sure we remain decentralized, but actually the incentives to do so, rather than kind of just using this buzzword, because decentralization and validators actually means you have a more robust setup.
Today, SSV is directly linked to ETH. And the future of SSV is directly linked to the future of ETH. Any dream to bring the value of SSV to any other network and to bring your tech to, because at the end of the day, the pain point you solve on the ETH network can be ported to any Solana ecosystem or to any Cosmos-based ecosystem. I think it brings value to the discussion, no?
Yeah, 100%. So I'd say I break that down into a few things. So on the DVT side, it's actually a non-trivial task to bring DVT to other networks.
Imagine.
For example, you take Solana, like the block time is so rapid. Like how do you bring consensus mechanism between operators into that? It's harder. But what we're working on with based applications is bringing the world of Web3 services, whether that could even be L2s or rollups, and how they can actually use the Ethereum validator set to secure their application. Beyond that as well, we also are bringing SSV chain. So this is a dedicated app chain that's going to be handling all the DVT and based app coordination. And it's at this point where we have SSV chain that actually any L1 validator can opt in to secure based applications as well. But this will be, towards the end of the year once SSV chain goes live too. So that's how we'll be working with other ecosystems too.
So SSV chain will be a based app, so acting as a management layer, but also a proof of concept of the base app.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea as well is to have conviction and use our own technologies. So the security of SSV chain will be bootstrapped as a base application itself. So going further, that will introduce SSV staking and bring a whole new token economic model to SSV as well.
Okay, because there is an existing SSV token driving the economy of the existing SSV DVT network.
So yeah, the SSV token, really powers the whole economy of SSV. So yeah, when you run validators on the SSV network, you pay just a negligible amount of SSV to the DAO.
Which, you pay your peers with the SSV network
exactly.
in exchange of the service of securing your validator service.
Of course, you can run an operator at SSV, you denominate your price in SSV tokens, and by participating in other people's clusters, then you can have a revenue generating opportunity as a staking service as well.
One tricky question. As a SSV player, as a validator operating the DVT on the DVT network, can I run on the Nigen pod at the same time and using the security of my existing layer 1 validator for based app, but also at the same time for restaking? Is it possible to combine everything without creating a big risk or big technical issue?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, fun fact that about 50% of the validators running on SSV Network today have an eigenpod associated with it. So I think most validators, have this kind of setup already. So actually, SSV Network does not touch your withdrawal credentials at all. Based applications doesn't either because we don't introduce slashing. What SSV Network does is it uses your validator key. So just by proving you're a validator on the Ethereum blockchain, super robust decentralized validator set, you might have had amazing uptime for like the last 3 years, like a really good reputation. Then you can opt into based apps with what we're starting to call, there's no real good name for this, but we're starting to call it like double dipping. So you can double dip into both securing based apps and also restaking. You can secure and get extra yield from SSV 2.0 and any service you want to opt into, but also open up your own eigenpods and go wild and secure AVS.
Yeah, without creating risk of on-chain effect in case of issue on one side or the other.
Exactly, but it all depends on the risk tolerance of the staker and whether you're comfortable with the slashing risk and so on and so forth.
Always the same question between risk and yield opportunity.
100%.
You touched a point about SSV2 restaking the existing tokenomic. What about the governance? Any impact on the governance? Staker will be more involved into the governance. And is a based app network or marketplace permissionless, or stakers will be able to vote for any incoming based app or not?
Yeah, 100%. So SSV Network's DAO governed. So there's a SSV DAO. The intention is to make sure that they look after the protocol long after we're gone. So that's a big thing. SSV Labs, we're the core contributors to SSV DAO. So we actually get a grant to do, all the development work and marketing and all the activities associated with, bringing the technology to market. So that's one thing. And being DAO governed, SSV token, gives you the ability to, have a vested interest in all the proposals and voting. You can even, put up your own proposal if you have an idea or two on your own on how things can be improved or to take things forward. On the roadmap, though, when we introduce SSV staking, SSV token will be, ultra sound, and we're looking at mechanisms in which, SSV token can be burnt along with network fees or, participating in based apps itself. So again, ideas on how we could accrue value back to SSV token.
Redistribute revenue between the players and the active stakers or active players of the
For sure.
Yeah. If we try to wrap up, SSV V2 incoming for this summer, bringing new concept on the market to not risk at a more existing stake token. What's next?
Yeah, you mentioned a good point with Lido V3. I think that's going to be very important for all the ecosystem participants involved in staking. I think for a long time, Lido was like a one-size-fits-all product for anyone to stake and have liquidity. But actually, as the market has matured, the average STETH holder is actually very different compared to whether you're a retail or even an ETF issuer with an Ethereum ETF, and you need access to liquidity. So for staking service providers, like really starting to look at what V3 brings and all the creativity you can around actually tailoring products with maybe different risk reward profiles and different setups in a way that wasn't done before. So super excited about the product and very bullish on what it can bring. The idea is that actually any Lido V3 vault can choose to run in any setup they want to. So yeah, using any DVT that they want, they can run SSV, they can opt into based applications, they can do leveraged looping, and really opens up a big universe and the type of product that you can get. So super excited about that and how SSV can provide value to a lot of V3 vaults that are getting spun up. And then beyond that, based applications, building out the ecosystem, and making sure that those validators that are running an SSV and committed to using the technology are continuing to get yield opportunities there. So that's keeping us busy, and
I imagine
it's a lot of fun at the same time.
Great, thanks for your time. It was very, very interesting. I think we covered a lot of things around SSV, and I think it will help a lot of people to understand what SSV. It's not just an infrastructure tool or infrastructure enabler helping validators to do the best way their job. It's something very bringing value to the ecosystem and also helping to solve the liquidity fragmentation we have today with so many numbers of L1 on the market. So thanks for that. Any final words, something you want to add or to conclude this interesting discussion?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground, Louis. No, excited to sit down with you in Dubai, and yeah, it's awesome.
Great. Thanks for your time. Thanks to join us today, and see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.